Oh, well, we're so glad to have you on. I'm so glad to get to talk to you again because I really enjoyed our conversation. When we met, I felt like the universe brought us together in that moment, sitting at those tables, just chatting. It was very nice. And then hearing your talk. And so I'm just really grateful to have you on and for Brian to get to meet you too.
Yeah.
I know, me too. I was happy to see you two doing this show together. I mean, obviously, Brian, you and I are meeting now for the first time, but I really adored Catherine, and our conversation was so lovely. And she was the person that I spoke with right before my talk, and I was telling her, I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to talk. And she's like, wow, that's really something, good for you. And you had your whole plan, but I think there was some part of it that was a little bit more spontaneous and in the moment too. But it was just nice because actually our conversation, it was just like kind of got me in the groove of just, this is easy. I'm just going to go talk to the crowd as if I'm talking to Catherine or, a lovely person. And that was it. So I mean, I've done it before, so it wasn't a big deal. But, anytime you get up to speak, there's a little like, I want to do a good job.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved that you kind of trusted yourself and just trusted the moment to go into it without over preparing. Like I was like too over prepared. And then you inspired me to say, like, let me just go out there and kind of be in the moment more, which is what I was speaking on. And we all were kind of speaking on that. And so it was nice to really embody that and to see you do that and so beautifully and just get up there and really connect with everyone. So it was great.
Oh,
Amalia, so you are a spiritual relationship coach and a soul alchemist. Tell me, what is a soul alchemist? I think of like chemicals and like mixing things and like creating something from different things. Oh, actually, did I just figure out what you do? Tell us.
You pretty much did. Yes. It's funny. I feel like what I do is different than what most people are used to. And to me, soul alchemist was really such a refined way of describing something that can't always be easily described. But then soul alchemist is like you said, like, what is that? But then when you just start to flow with it, then you uncover and discover what you already know innately inside of you, because we're all connected in that way. We all operate in that way, whether we're aware of it or not. So I love the way you just unlocked that within yourself right here. And I was privy to the witnessing of it. That was really cool. So I feel like for each of us on some level, to some dimension in depth, are here alchemizing some part of our soul experience in this lifetime. And some people just kind of dip their toe into the alchemization experience. And what I mean by that is their life, their physical environment, their job, their all the things in life that we consider our lives are kind of just the mainstream sort of experience. You go to school, maybe you go to college, maybe you don't, but you find a partner, you get married, you have kids, you have a home, you do the life thing in that way. For other people, there's a cloud going by, so my lighting is going weird. Natural light, you can't control it. So, but for other people, they're like, wait a minute, I love all this in my life. And I know that there's so much more. And the so much more people are the people that find me. Because when you go into the so much more, you're going into the so much more that might not feel so good. Mm-hmm. And there's a little support that may need to be had. And so I think, Brian, I'm not sure if your background is the same as Catherine's as far as, the psychological aspects of it. But I feel like when people start to expand their mind, then the psychological part, the mental health and wellness and understanding how the mind works and how that affects the nervous system and all the interactions, that's really helpful. And then even I kind of liken it to beyond that and within that, to me, is the spiritual part of it. It encompasses all of it. And when you start to unlock these different pieces of yourself, and you start to notice these different soul aspects, then you can really start to fully express who you are on a soul level. And that oftentimes requires, from my experience anyway, alchemization, a shifting of that energy from one form to another. And I could go on and on about that, but I think that kind of gives a good synopsis of that. Hopefully that answers your query or expands on the answer that you came up with.
Yeah, definitely. And I can totally relate, because I think when I turned 40, the chase of the house and the car and the marriage and the kids, and you have all that. And then it's like, oh my God, what's next? And then it's, for me, obviously my kids and my family matter, but the material things, the things you're chasing, and doesn't matter, right? For me, it mattered a lot, and to have kind of that status and kind of make some money and have things. But now I don't want anything. Like, none of that matters. So then it's like, it's empty, right? There's like this void, and maybe it's filled with religion or faith, and some people go that way and kind of give some purpose or meaning in your life. But we have kind of been on a little journey, I'd say, right? Exploring kind of the universe and energy and spiritual healing, and really just inquiring, wanting more information and asking questions and getting curious. And it's been fun, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad that it's kind of on the same timeline, because I could see that being a huge issue. Because you coach couples, spiritual relationship coach, right? So maybe that's not just couples, but relationships in general. Do you find that people have that issue if one person is kind of going into that something more, but someone's still stuck in the material? I should do this, the status and all of that. Do you see that within couples? Do you work with couples, or do you just work with individuals with their relationships with others?
You get so mad at me for asking multiple questions at the same time.
I had so many
and you just did it. I know. See, it's hard sometimes.
I have so many questions.
I got all the questions, so I can answer all of them. So I work with couples and individuals, mostly with individuals who have relationship issues, but I will also work with couples. And then I also, when it comes to relationships, and this was one of the things that I touched on in my talk at Defiantly Joyful, was that we often think of relationships in terms of two people or a group of people, intimate partnerships, friendships, family, things like that. But there's the relationship with a higher power. There's a relationship with money, with your body, with nature, with the world around you. So there's so many different aspects of relationships that I touch on, and that I really help support people in their exploration of, because I know this because I really got caught up in the material world and the things and I think living in Northern Virginia, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, that cluster, it's an interesting place. And I know you two moved from outside of the area to the area. I'm sure you have noticed that as you have planted roots in Virginia. It's a wonderful place for raising children and to live, but there's something about the area where it's very materially focused, and that can really skew what your perspective is on what's important. So kind of just a baseline for that. Now, to answer the other part of the question about couples is absolutely, are you going to encounter that where one person, and it's usually the woman in the let's just say the male-female marital dynamic, is in this place of curiosity and wonder about the world. And she starts to explore and maybe starts to talk to her girlfriends about it. And they start to maybe go to a yoga class or be interested in meditation, or, want to go on a retreat or just go on a girls' weekend and start to explore and see all that's available to them. And then they're excited and pumped up, and they come home and they tell their husband, and he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have time for that. Who's going to pay for the trip you just took? It's like that sort of
I've never seen
mentality and that sort of,
Yeah.
Is that familiar?
No, I don't know what you're talking about at all.
So yes, that does happen. And, that dynamic somewhat happened within my first marriage, where we were just in different places. Like, we really had a beautiful foundation, and were what people would say to us were the pinnacle of what they were looking to accomplish in their marriage and their lives and their families. We were this beautiful image of perfection, if there was such a thing. And it wasn't really true in terms of what they saw. They couldn't feel what we were feeling. They weren't experiencing our day to day. And there was a time when I was beginning to expand and grow. And it's not that he wasn't, it's just that we weren't kind of flowing on the same frequency. And that created, along with some other things, created some issues within the relationship, which ultimately led to us going in different directions. And, I wrote a book about it coming out in January. I'm going to give a little shameless plug to my book.
Yes.
It's called We to Me, A Story of Love, Loss, and Liberation.
Love it.
And it talks a lot about that process, what was happening within our marriage. And, their infidelity was a part of the story. So I feel like that's another topic that's so important to talk about in terms of when you start to feel that divide within the relationship, what can you do? What steps can you take perhaps? And I hadn't really thought about this until now, but a great, subject to bring up and discuss, because, oftentimes there is one person in a relationship that starts to see life differently and want to explore and discover more. And the other one is maybe resistant. I truly believe, and I know from my own experience, that it only takes one in a relationship to shift the trajectory of the two, as long as the other is willing to come along and meet you where you are. So I'll use you, Catherine, as an example. So let's just say, Catherine, you're like, oh my gosh, Brian, I had the most amazing time. You are not going to believe the feelings I had and the visions I had and the excitement I feel around this potential for us. And you share it with him. And he's listening. He loves you. He's happy for you, but he's not on board because he's not feeling the excitement that you're feeling. But he's like, do what you want to do. Like, I'm not standing in your way. Some husbands do. I'm not standing in your way, but I'm not really necessarily on board. Like, I don't really want to hear about the moon and about the different things that are happening in the cosmos. It just doesn't affect me. In his mind, think it does, but so then you continue on that path and he begins to see how you're growing and how you're changing and how you're glowing and how all of a sudden the things that would stress you out don't. And now his life is easier. And he's like, maybe there is something to this. And so it's almost like following your own individual, knowing your own individual spark, and then allowing the other person to be where he or she is, but continuing to follow yours without irritation and aggravation that he isn't. And then he will follow or he won't. And if he doesn't, then you guys are no longer a match. If he does, then you can work on this together and you can flow and move forward together. And that takes some patience on the person that's evolving's part, because you're so excited and you really want this person to come with you. But then that gets into that sticky space of control. You are attempting to assert your control and your will over them, which doesn't feel good for anyone. And that can cause tension and friction. So and this typically happens around that like midlife crisis point, because around that time, 37 to 42-ish, what you were saying before, Brian, exactly true. You begin to shift your perspective, and that's when you're more open to the spiritual side or the what's beyond what I've experienced so far, and also recognizing, whether conscious or not, the finiteness of life. Wait a minute, my parents are getting older. Maybe they've begun their transition to spirit. We have kids that are getting older. Wait, I'm not that 20 something or 30 something who was just like, you could stay up super late and could have more than 2 glasses of wine and not feel like crap the next day. It's like those little things that begin to shift. So I know that was a bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but I feel like an important one to speak and address and share with people.
I just want to really quickly relate that to our work with kids with autism, we have a therapeutic model that's kind of the guiding relationship. When we want to teach our clients things, it's not telling them or forcing them to do stuff, which people do, and giving them a treat or rewarding them, but it's kind of this guided model, guided relationship where, you know, you're sharing, you're inviting, you're allowing access to, and through this path, this journey, when they feel safe, comfortable, you've built that relationship. They join on their own. They stay longer. They learn from you sharing, and kind of grow through that experience. And that kind of sounds exactly, you know, like what you're talking about with this model. And I think as long as you have an open relationship, how can you be like, you know, if I'm noticing Catherine, you know, happier and she's sharing and she's really excited and loves this, like the Reiki. Wow, well, why not? You know, let's try it out. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe it's cool. Maybe I won't. But she seems to be getting something, and I'm reading stuff about it. And yeah, so unless you're so close-minded and just stuck in your routines and rigid kind of work and come home and watch football, right? That's another. I was just thinking of that too, though. Like, I enjoy football. You don't want nothing to do with it, and that's okay too. So you gotta, I guess, find that balance between just doing what the other person likes just to make them happy versus finding, you know, growing together and doing things and having your own things that you do. I don't know.
I feel like that's really important to have your own individual interests. I think there are many couples who feel like to be successful, they have to do everything together, or there's this pressure at least to do that. And I feel like that can be really difficult and challenging for a relationship for both people and ultimately the relationship itself. Because I see any intimate partnership as a kind of a trio, a triad. And it's the individuals. And then at the top of that triangle is the couple, which is in that relationship, which is separate from the individuals, but encompasses the individuals. And that has a whole life and energy of its own. Because when each of you goes out in your day separately, you're not, hi, I'm Catherine and Brian Bovino. No, you're not saying that. So you're Catherine and you're Brian, and you're going out in the world engaging as such. And so when you come together as a couple, you know, that to me is where you two are working with each other to learn and grow and evolve as individuals within the relationship. He is probably, other than maybe your kids, Catherine and Brian, maybe you could speak to this too, kind of turning the interview around a little bit. But I think it's interesting to reflect on, you know, if you think about, you know, Catherine, for you, Brian is probably your most important person in the world outside of your kids. And for Brian, she's probably your most important person in the world outside of your kids. And because of that devotion and commitment to each other, you've also devoted and committed to expanding yourself within and through the relationship. And so that person that you love the most is probably also the person that can drive you the most crazy. Where they know the buttons to push. They know they know how to get under your skin, not purposefully, but that's their purpose. That's their role, is to do that in order for you to access, ooh, I'm feeling a little agitated by this. It's not a big deal. So what is it within me that is that button is getting pushed? Because it's not him. It's not his fault. It's not her fault. It's me, because I'm having a reaction to it. What is that? And I find usually there's an obvious external component, but it's a much deeper wound that's looking to be healed, which could come from you or could come from your lineage, you know, your ancestry. And when you heal that for yourself, it can help the relationship, but it can also heal your ancestors and your kids. And I've noticed that in my own life. So I know that it's true. I can speak to it and give examples if you wanted of how I've noticed my healing has affected my kids, even when they're not around me every day. So it's really interesting, fascinating, and beautiful to see that opening, that unfolding, and that healing.
Yeah.
Just by healing yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing, right? The hardest work. Well, healing is the hardest work, right? That we do, but most important, but to take away that reaction and the blame and
it's easy to point fingers, but it gets you nowhere.
But
it circles.
Yeah. Coming to your own reactiveness and why that wound and healing that. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, it's a process. We're working on it.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. You have some examples. Can you share those examples? And then we want to hear, how did you get into this? How did you transition from, I don't know if you had a career or your mom or what you did before, but what led you to kind of, was it your 40s and kind of getting over that materialistic phase, or what was that transition like for you?
So I'll kind of answer the two
Yep.
questions together. The story began for me, and I actually talk about this in my book, We to Me, was I had a very significant jaw surgery where it was a 9-hour surgery. I was in the hospital for several days. It was not your normal, like, go and get a tooth extracted out. Fine. It was traumatizing and it was life-changing. And I was unable to eat. I had to puree food and use a syringe, and my jaw was wired shut. I couldn't speak. So I was very much caught in my own world. And to communicate I'd have to make sure that I really was honed in on what I wanted to say and to be as concise as possible, because I'd have to type it or write it to share. And I learned very quickly that was just not an easy way to communicate. And so I would often just remain quiet, because by the time I would type or write out a response, the conversation had long since moved, and it was frustrating to me. So I remained kind of observing and quiet, and it was, just trying to do whatever I could to heal. And when in that process, that's when I think I realized, like, I had the pause in my life as a mom of 4 kids and running around and, doing all of the things. I had the luxury and the blessing of staying at home with my kids, which was amazing. But it wasn't like I was sitting around watching soap operas and eating, chips.
Amazing, but quite a challenge and a job itself. Like, 4 kids, that's not just sitting around. Yes.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. And my husband at the time had his own business and worked from home. And so I was also not helping him so much hands-on within the day-to-day of the business, but for all of the parties for the business and any travel and, any events or things. I was the voice of a number of companies locally because he would do the phone systems. And, so I was supporting him. I was taking care of the kids. I was volunteering within the community at the schools. So I had a very full and busy life. And I really did not spend a lot of time thinking about myself or what I needed or wanted. Occasional girls' trips, occasional lunches with friends, dinners, things like that, but nothing really geared towards me. So when I had this pause in my life, that's when I realized that I really wanted to do something different. And a very long story short, what ended up happening was I started a jewelry business, creating jewelry using fair trade stones and components, so ethically sourced components, to make what I called energetic wearables. And they were basically the ubiquitous beaded bracelets you see and malas and different things. But my intention was to make them so they actually fit. I have very small wrists. So anytime I'd buy one, they would just fly off my wrists. So I was like, I'll make them so they fit small people and larger people. They just make this one size fits all that doesn't fit all. And also have a way of supporting people so they have a tangible, beautiful, energetic support. And that's where I started. And I found that I was spending a lot of time talking with people, supporting people, sharing my experiences, sharing what I knew about energy and different aspects of how you can perceive life. And that, my $100-ish bespoke bracelet was not covering the time that I was spending with people. And it naturally, organically segued into workshops and then ultimately working with people individually. And what I realized in this process of healing from the surgery too was that, I had innate abilities and talents that I turned off when I was a teenager. And I was remembering them and they were coming back to me. And that was really fun to rediscover them. And then that just kept blossoming. Let me just turn this light on. Kept blossoming into, what I do now. It's just kind of been this very organic expansion. And then as an example, like you had asked about an example, when I what I call disentangled from my not anymore husband, and I moved from Virginia to Florida. Yeah, I decided to create all new terminology around it. It wasn't working for me. So when I was here and I was in a relationship with someone whom I'm currently married to now, but we were on a little bit of a pause. And that's my next book, talking about this relationship, because it's a very unique one. But we were on a little bit of a pause that he, on a soul level, knew that I needed to have some time with myself, that I went from one relationship to another, which was not my intention, but the universe had a different plan for me. And that I needed to have some time to really get to know myself and to be with me. And in that process, I connected with my kids. I would describe it like, if you're not familiar with this sort of terminology and world, it's like imagining you're sitting with someone you love and you're having a conversation. That's kind of what I would liken it to. And I had these conversations with my kids because they were in Virginia and I was here. And we were talking about different aspects of what happened with their dad and me. And what, and I've had actual conversations with them in the physical world about this too, but they were sharing with me things about that process that were hard for them. And I noticed in myself when they were saying that, like these feelings within me that sparked a healing that I needed to also look at. And it had to do with speaking up, to first of all, knowing what it is that you feel, and then being able to speak to it. And it seems like a small thing, but yet it's a huge thing. And it's one that I feel as you mature and you grow, that evolves and continues to evolve over your lifetime. And when I started to really become clear on how I was engaging with myself and with them and with the world around me, I began to notice how I was placing my view of the world on everyone else. And it was coming from a loving place, because I wanted them, kind of what we talked about earlier. I wanted them, my wish for them was to see things in this way, but they were not open or interested. So I did some healing around that. I kind of took my hands off the wheel. I started to, instead of just sharing, I would ask, something has come up and I'm wondering if you're interested in talking about this, or can I share this with you? And the only reason that I was able to do that was because of the healing that I had done. Prior to me even having a sense of what was happening, in this process of that, in the midst of it, one of my kids reached out to me out of the blue, not one who normally would ask for support or help or be interested that much really in what I had to say. I mean, maybe on the surface, but asked me for some support, be like in a professional capacity. And that blew me away. And so I knew in that moment that the work that I'd been doing on myself created that opening for him to feel the safety and to feel that sense of, I can come to her and I can ask for her help, but she's not going to push it on me. She's not going to try to control it. And when I checked in with my ancestors and checked in with particularly my father, who's in spirit, he's like, that's it. He's like, the two pieces were getting in touch with your emotions and allowing the other person to come to a place to you when they were ready, not you putting it on them. And that was something my dad had done to me and my siblings. And so it was a really beautiful, to me, healing. And I see the ripple effects that have taken place. So I can give another example, but I feel like that illustrates the point pretty well.
You said you realized as a teenager and these gifts came back. Is that like the spiritual sense, energy, clairvoyant gifts you're referring to, or something else? Like, did you have some feelings or intuitive or things when you were a teenager?
I did actually from early on. So, I mean, I remember parts of my very early childhood when I was a baby. I remember things when pretty significant events to me, but not necessarily significant in terms of life, from when I was, between 18 months and 3 years old. And it continued to blossom and grow over time. But I didn't know as a kid what that was. And to me, it was just kind of cool and fun, just part of who I was. When I was a teenager, we, girls talk and we, have boy problems or things go on and we don't know what to do. And I realized that in my dream world, I was getting answers to questions, and that I could also get answers to questions for my friends. So my friends would say, hey, Amalia, I really like so-and-so. Do you think he likes me? Do I need to do something? Things like that. And then I would have a dream that would show or reveal an answer. And then I would tell them. And that was really cool for a while. But then I realized no one else was doing that. And then I started to feel weird. And as a teenager, all you want to do is belong. Yeah. You just want to have your group. And you don't want to be this oddball who's having these dreams and answering people's. And plus, it wasn't really, as I know now, it wasn't my place to do. That was their journey, their experience. I was kind of cheating in a way, giving them the answers because they needed to discover them on their own. So I feel like that was it's an easy place for me now, because it's not that I necessarily know all the answers. I don't, but I do know a lot of potential pathways for people and support them to access that on their own. Not me saying, this is what I see for you. And it's just different.
It's easy to give the answer, but it's not helpful long-term or sustainable. But did you meditate on it and then fall asleep and it would just come to you and you'd remember it? I'm really curious, because it wasn't just like a dream or subconscious. You would think about it, ask the universe, fall asleep, and then you'd have the answer when you woke up?
It wasn't even that formal. It was just, somebody would ask me. I might think about it, I might not, and then it would come. And it may not be that night. It might take a couple of nights, but I would ultimately get a response, usually pretty quick, usually like within 24 hours, but not always.
Wow. And it was accurate to your, as far as getting, I don't know, I'm just so fascinated, and I totally believe you, but was it accurate as far as like where it led to or not led to, or the correct decision, if there is a correct decision, right? I don't know. That's hard.
I don't think there's a correct decision. I feel like you can't make a mistake. You can't screw up. Wherever you're destined to go, you'll end up there. If you take a detour, then you take a detour. Maybe that detour was super important for 10 steps down the road. I would say it was supportive and helpful for them in that moment. Was it accurate, or was it the best, or how that terminology that you were kind of looking for? It's hard. I don't know. I have no idea, but it gave them a place to work with and a place of peace in the moment. I would assume. I don't know. It's been a long time now, but I would assume, because people kept asking. So I guess it was helpful.
Kept going back to the well. I'm so curious, because I feel like I have some sensitivities and have had some, meetings with other people in the world that have mentioned that I have these. We all do, I guess, and I don't know if that's your belief. And it's just opening up those pathways, hearing, listening. Kind of, there's exercises, and I read a few books of things how you could practice to get more in tune with your frequencies. And I've been told I was my Palladians in the universe, and I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but I'm on that frequency. And they're very much a part of me, and I'm not out of judgment. I'm with you, and I think it's amazing. I want to practice and
you're excited to learn more.
Yes, I'm excited to learn more. So I hope it doesn't come across as like me not believing you. I think it's awesome.
I don't feel that at all.
All right,
not at all.
What tools do you give clients to help them get through maybe some challenges or struggling or not sure where to go, or I guess what's some common themes you see with the people you work with, and what kind of advice or idea, or how do you cultivate their growth or their learning?
I find that most people that make their way to me, they have a specific issue that we are working on. And that specific issue is going to then lead me to where I offer support or give them tools or strategies, which are different for everyone. However, if you want to just talk about overlap or maybe different areas, I'm a huge, huge, huge advocate of journaling. Whether you journal in an actual book, if you journal on your laptop, if you journal in your phone, if you voice note journal, if you video journal, and I don't care how you journal, get the thoughts that are percolating out. Write down the magical synchronicities that happen in your life. That's one thing that I've noticed with my clients, is that as soon as it's the moment they make the appointment, that first reach out to me, whether it's just an appointment to have a conversation to see if what my Soulful Life program is about. I have people that are saying, they'll reach out to me and say, somebody told me to reach out to you, or I found you and I just feel like I need to work with you, but I have no idea what you do. Like, I have no idea what I'm here for. And that is like that moment that they have that curiosity and they take one action step towards working with me. And it doesn't have to be me. It could be somebody else. But I find that with my specific energy, when they get that opening, it's like this explosion of, and it's not an explosion that feels like a lot. It's this explosion of opportunities that start to present themselves and synchronicities that begin to unfold. And that is so fun. So I help them recognize the synchronicities and give them little places of noticing. Pay attention to numbers, pay attention to animals, pay attention to certain feelings or sensations, things like that, where they can really begin to see and access the world around them that is beyond what they've been able to see before. And those are pretty easy, tangible ways for them to do it. So that's one, journaling, huge. The second one is paying attention to your dreams. I mean, like I said before, my dream world is incredibly supportive, fun, and amazing. It can also be challenging because it'll bring up stuff to the surface that I may not have wanted to look at before. So it's not all rainbows and unicorns in your dreamscape. However, we are supported in that space. We are receiving information and healing in that space. Have you ever slept a full night seemingly well and you wake up and you're exhausted?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's because while you were sleeping, you were actually working on something within you, helping someone else, doing something in this other dimensional world that your body was resting, but not fully resting because you were the essence of you, the soul of you was out doing something else. Then you come back in and it's not that your soul can get tired, because it can't, but you're, kind of integrating that coming back in, and it's not quite the same as getting a full night's sleep. So dream journaling, paying attention to your dreams. It's best to dream journal. I have a whole course about this because it's not necessarily, how many times do you wake up and God, I had the weirdest dream, and then you try to recount it and you can't quite get all the pieces. So I have a course that helps people remember and gives some tools and strategies and different things that are helpful. And, the third thing, obviously, everyone talks about meditation. I'm a huge advocate of meditation. However, I'm not a huge advocate of meditation that's really refined and structured and has to be a certain way. To me, meditation can be done in the mindless chores of your day, being fully present in washing the dishes, being fully present when you brush your teeth, fully present when you're folding the laundry. That's a meditation. Waking up and staying in the bed and checking in with your body, like running a body scan and just being really present with your body and how you feel, that's a meditation. So it makes me a little bit nutty when, I have clients like, I can't meditate. Okay, maybe you can't sit in lotus position for 30, 45 minutes, with your hand in a funky mudra at your heart center. That's totally cool. I mean, not many people can, but you can take 2 to 5 minutes when you wake up and do a quick scan of your body and see how you feel. Mm-hmm. No excuses why you can't do that. Yeah. And that's a meditation.
Yeah. And just the mindfulness approach of while you're doing the dishes, tuning into that present moment, coming back. Yeah, I love that. So journaling, remembering your dreams, or kind of analyzing, dream journaling, and then meditation were your three major tips that you give people. I want to take your dream course because I feel like I have crazy dreams all the time. And when I journal about them, right when I wake up, write it down and reflect on it, I do find a lot of answers in that. But when I get out of that habit and then I'm just having the crazy dream and I'm like, what did that mean? What was that? And then I go about my day, it's like, oh, I want to take that information and really use it because I feel like it's coming through for a reason. Sometimes it's just so complex and weird that it's like, what in the, so Is there anything that I could take today that would help me with that process? We need to go through the course, obviously, but is there something?
I mean, of course, I'd love for you to take the course, but this is something that I think is really easy to do when it comes to analyzing and really being able to hone in on the dream. One of the key things is, okay, write down as much as you can remember when you wake up. And there's some other steps to this, but that would be one, right? As much as you can. Pay attention, not so much to the details of the dream. However, they're important. How do you feel? What is coming up for you from a feeling emotional state? Extremely important. Write that down. Write down how you felt. Okay, so now you have the feelings, you have some basic components. If you can't remember the details, write down anything that you remember, because I have found that even if it's an inanimate object in the dream, like, let's just say like a little figurine or something on a shelf, and you remember that for some reason, there's a reason that's the thing that's sticking in your mind. So those even small things that seem meaningless are important. And then taking all that information, what would be the title of the dream? Like if this dream were a movie, what's the title?
Okay.
Because that's actually going to give your mind a place to go. And it's also going to give us kind of not a summary, but kind of the essence in the title.
Yeah.
And that's one really easy way to get. I feel like I could go on and on, but I'll just leave it there. So just give it.
Sometimes you wake up and you definitely have a feeling like, wow, I feel refreshed. That was a good dream. And others are startled and frightened and kind of
Or
anxious.
you're still mad about what happened in the dream. You feel like it's like
you're gonna
like mad at you, something you did in my dream, but it didn't really happen. It's like I can't let it go.
How do you feel about like plant medicine and accessing these other portals and utilizing these tools that seems to gaining popularity in kind of that?
I love plant medicine as far as a supportive piece to someone's journey, but not everyone.
Sure.
It's not for everyone. I feel like if you are genuinely called to the medicine, follow that, but do some research. Make sure that who you're working with is reputable. Make sure there is a lineage that they're following. Feel into your own intuitive knowing in the space of, ask, really connect with yourself and your higher guidance and ask is this ceremony appropriate for me? Is the ceremony going to be supportive for me? Is the curandera going to be the appropriate person to lead me and to hold the space for me in this? Are the people that are showing up in ceremony people that are going to be supportive of my journey? Because, a lot of times in plant medicine ceremonies, you have no control over who's there. And everyone is wide open energetically. And it can be a tricky place to be in for some. And so, like I said, I feel like it's been I personally have had challenging experiences with the medicine, different types of plant medicine. I've had really beautiful experiences with plant medicine. So, I feel like too, it can be a slippery slope for people if they don't understand what it's actually about and they're looking to find an easy way through something, or it's not easy. Plant medicine is not easy. It is, yes, there's experiences that you can have that are these mystical, magical experiences, and it's blissful and amazing. They're not all blissful and amazing. Some are really, really, really hard. And the integration after the ceremony, to me, is the most important part of it. If you are not integrating what's coming up in that ceremony, you're actually doing more harm than good, in my opinion. Excuse me, because you are accessing these tremendously sensitive parts of yourself that your conscious mind has kept hidden for a reason. And now you brought them to the surface and they're there, but you're not dealing with it. And that can be really disorienting for people and create a lot of turbulence, let's just say, in their life afterwards. So that's the other part of it too. If you're looking into a ceremonial space, what is the integration like? What are they doing to support you afterwards? And I would say too, just my own personal opinion on it is ensure that you have a couple of people that were in that ceremonial space with you that you connect with regularly to talk through for the next few months, maybe 3 to 6 months, the things that are coming up and be able to integrate, because they're going to know best what was the energy of the space within the ceremony and be able to speak with you about that. And there's a bond that's formed when you're in that space with people, whether you stay connected personally with them or not. I'm in touch with quite a few folks that I have been in ceremonial spaces with, and it's such a gift. It's beautiful. I find that there are people, Brian, you brought up the Pleiadians. I feel like they are likely souls that I've had galactic history with and have been able to, we've come here for a purpose on Earth, and we found each other, and it's a really beautiful thing.
That's a common theme, I think, is it has to be a small part of your journey. It's not a fix all. You do this and you're good, right? You're healed. Your PTSD or whatever you're working on is gone. It's not at all, right? So
That's a part of the process.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you've been called? I mean, I feel like I don't want to speak for you.
This is part of the universe that the Pleiadians are connecting through.
What are the Pleiadians? I've tried to do some research. Tell me. I don't know who wants to tell me more.
They're another species from far off that come through frequency, and they're a specific frequency, and you could play the music, and there's a lot of. I know very little. There is books. I've researched some. This is a while ago. I don't remember, but. Anyway,
I will say this, I have found, and this is something that I offer within my Soulful Life program too, is we look at your galactic heritage, where you have come from. You're able to see the star systems that you have a connection to. And some of those star systems are very much a part of your life now, whether you're aware of it or not, and supportive. I love that you know that you have a connection to Pleiades, Brian. That's really cool. It's very helpful. You can ask them for help. You can call on their energy in times of need. That's amazing. And then there's other star systems that are supportive for different reasons, for different modalities. So depending on, what area of interest that you have, you'll likely find that there is a star system that you have a connection to that's very much in tune with that. And then there's also star systems that there might be a little tension with you and that star system. And that may show up in relationships with other people from those star systems that you may not recognize or realize in that moment. So there's so many different ways that we can look at how we're connected to each other and how we're learning from each other. That's a huge part of what I talk about. Like pretty much every post on social media, I end with, we learn from one another, because we do. We are. Your podcast, you are learning from people are learning from you, and then that's going out, and countless people are learning from listening. So it's a really cool part of just noticing those intergalactic connections. I think.
And I think fun. I had blockages, and this lady was like, working on opening those blockages and allowing that energy, that space to come through and fully feel and help kind of cultivate that, I guess, relationship. And really exciting.
Yeah, I want to learn more about the astrology part of it, and you do human design work as well. And
I do.
Tell it.
Yeah, and also I also work with the gene keys. That's another one that is becoming more well known. A lot of people know human design. Not as many people know gene keys. Gene keys it's different than human design, but there's human design elements to it as well. And it's such a beautiful. It's such a beautiful unfolding, it's contemplation. Richard Rudd, the author of the book, The Gene Keys, which is actually sitting here on my desk because I use it all the time. He talks about this work as a living transmission. And I love that, because that's exactly what it is. You're taking this energetic transmission into your being, and it's the gene keys. It's in your DNA, and it's almost like that. To me, is also part of that alchemization. You're able to see these different parts of yourself not just through your mind's eye, but you feel it in your body, because there's body connections with each key. And there's different astrological aspects connected to each key. And then within that key, so imagine it's like a sphere. And then there is this multi-dimensionality to the sphere where based on, there's another number connected with the sphere that gives you a little more information. So it's this really rich, robust contemplation for people. And when you look at a person, their whole profile, you get to see, you can see, but most importantly, they can see all these different aspects and facets of themselves. And it's just such it's a complement to human design. It's also based on astrology. So there's all that richness to it as well. I bring in, energy, I feel so weird saying Reiki master training, because it's available for all, but there's different aspects that I bring into my work that are really supportive. Hypnotherapy is another piece, yoga, movement, things like that I feel like each of us can benefit from in some way. And, Brian, I want to just comment on something you said earlier about, these abilities for each of us to receive information. And yes, totally, everyone has the ability to do that. It's, are they open and are they willing? And I would say if they are open and willing and interested, huge caveat is really just make sure that you are saying for the highest and best of all, and from an integral place. Are you doing it because you want to get something? Are you doing it because there's some sort of like benefit beyond something that would be considered integrous?
Trying to figure out the winning lottery ticket numbers for next week. Get something right. Tell me, what is thriving for you? What does that look like? And how did you get here? I mean, I imagine people are listening to this, they're stuck in a day-to-day, jobs, and then you're cooking dinner and cleaning the house and, kind of going through the motions. And for me, that's always been like my worst fear. Like anytime I get a job and I'm just like showing up and going through the motions, and I had many of them, and it wasn't inspired, wasn't challenged, wasn't kind of learning, right? I've always left, and it kind of always worked out, and I changed careers many times, and I always came out better, and not better, but in terms of like inspired and growth and changing and evolving and kind of expanding. Right. And that's kind of what led us to do this podcast and really figuring out what is that? So what is it for you that, how have you got here, and what is like thriving, or I guess kind of like the purpose of life, but not, that's too much. But what is thriving in life for you, and what does that look like? Is that a clear enough question?
Catherine's reaction over there is just so hilariously cute.
She's like this guy in his questions.
Tell us what to do, Amalia. We need to answer.
No, she can't tell us, right? Okay. Nobody wants to tell us, right?
I think we need to set up a coaching session with it. I do.
No.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. You want to know how to thrive, or what?
No. What does that mean? What does that mean for her, and what, like, through her journey? I think that's what people would be interested in hearing. How have you got here? That's the social media marriage, right? The Instagram marriage is what I call it. Everything looks great, and we're vacation and houses and cars. Oh, look how happy we are. Nobody's happy. That's crap. We're all struggling. Like, be real, people. And I feel like you're being real, right? And it's so much more powerful than like, look at my new car I got. It's awesome. Like, who cares? Right?
Yeah. I completely agree. What we see on the internet, social media, there's truth to it, but there's also some shellacking that's taking place as well. For me, thriving is living from my soul every day and doing whatever I can to be aware of how I am showing up in life and how I am engaging with other people in a way that is kind and loving and honors who they are.
See? She had an answer, and that was an amazing answer. I love it.
Great. She's
Sorry to cut you off. I'm just very excited. That was awesome. Exactly.
That's pretty much that would be my definition. I don't know if I've ever articulated it that way. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. And the other part of it too is, you asked how I got here. And I feel like for everyone, it's a slightly different journey. And what I really would love for people to take away is life doesn't have to get really bad before you take action. I feel like that's the catalyst for most of us. Our marriage falls apart. We lose a job. We have someone close to us transition to spirit. We have a financial issue. There's something in our life that isn't quite where we like it to be, or where in our heart and soul feel like we could be, but we just keep going with the motions and we don't do anything about it. And then we notice all of a sudden, we're like, how did I get to this place? What happened? And it's because we ignored the 5,000 signs that we had prior to that moment where it clicks in. And, I joke around, like, I had the whispers, I had the shouts, I had the screaming, I had the flashing red lights, I had the stop signs, and then a grand piano fell out of a 3-story building onto my head. And I was like, maybe I need to do something different. You don't have to wait for it to get that bad. When you start to notice within yourself, pay attention to how you're feeling, pay attention to the signs and the synchronicities that are happening that are telling you this is something to pay attention to. This is some place that might need a little care and tending to. This area of your life is not how you'd like it. What would that be? What can you do? And that doesn't mean, okay, you're struggling in your marriage, you just say, bye, see you later, I'm done. It's really getting curious and having conversations, hard conversations. And the first challenging conversation is the one you have with yourself, to really acknowledge and admit to yourself, this is not working for me. I need a change. I need something different. What is it? You don't need to know the answer completely, but have a sense of what that might be, so that you can go and talk to your partner and say, hey, I love you and I'd like to make this work, or at least I feel like I'd like to make this work. But right now I'm feeling like I want to throw in the towel, and this is what I'm feeling. And not a blame game and not finger pointing, because you've probably heard that saying, one finger pointed at you, there's 3 pointing back, or one pointed someone else, 3 pointing back at you, because it's something within you. It's not that person's job or responsibility to fix it, but they can support you in that process. And that could actually bring you closer together. Or it creates a bigger chasm between you, in which case it's pretty clear the path that might be best for both parties. To piggyback on that just slightly, is that it's also my belief, we're in the United States anyway, we're raised to believe you get married and you stay in marriage forever, even though divorce rates are very high. That's what we're programmed to believe. And I feel like there are some couples where that is absolutely their destiny, their agreement with one another in this life. And there are other couples that came together to learn and grow from each other until they finish that up. And then when they do, they're done. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I feel like we try so hard to hold on to something that is complete already. And I would love there to be more conversation around divorce not being this negative thing, it being just the natural expiration of a relationship based on the agreements that they had. It's kind of like the lease on your car. You don't get to keep it after the expiration date. It's done.
Yeah.
You return it or you buy it. So in that case, maybe these people come up with another agreement and they decide to stay in it a little longer. And this may not even be conscious. I don't want people to think like this is a conscious thing. It's an energetic thing. But when the time is done, it's done. And then you move on to the next agreement and the next relationship and the next experience to have. And to me, that just feels a whole lot easier and more approachable and fun than feeling like you have to make it work and sticking in something that both people are unhappy with. And that creates a world, if you think about it, of unhappy people, which is not really a world that is the most optimal place to thrive.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about waiting to hit rock bottom to make changes, but even like the guilt. We have a house and my job pays enough, and there are people that are struggling, so we're doing okay. There's shame of asking for more or deserving, $10,000 to speak at a conference. No, who am I? What do I know? We all deserve that, and so, I think you you set your own where you want to be. You want to be comfortable. I don't. I'm going to be challenged. And you hear so much about failing forward and growing and keep going. And that's what I'm looking for. Like, what sets that 1% to like, I don't care. I'm going to fail and I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow. Right, being not afraid to fail. We're all afraid to fail. I don't know. I am, but I still go. I'm still moving forward. Right, is through that failure.
Yeah. That is a hard. And I think us moving from California to here, it was like, oh, we have all the things where we live in we have the jobs, we have the house, we have the pool, like we should be happy. Who are like you're saying, who are we to ask? Why should we ask for more? Why do we? Yeah, we were happy.
We're content.
But it's like, content, like in a just kind of, But then it's like, but there was those whispers and the piano falling on our head and all of that. Literal letter in the mailbox asking to buy our house. Like, this is the universe giving us the messages. And luckily we followed them. But it is hard to then say, well, why should we ask? Who are we to ask for more? And what is there more? And but listening to those. And I think we do pretty good with that on the outward things. I would like to get better for myself on the inner whispers of like what I should be personally working on and doing that work on myself. I think like outwardly making the big moves, but that's something that I would like to personally get better with. Is there a tip for that? Is there a way we can listen to the whispers of our own soul and what we should be doing individually?
I say the best way to do that is to live your life and follow your joy. What are the things that light you up? Yeah. Do them without shame, without guilt, without question.
I think you do that too.
And as
she does that really well. You do that. Like you find something and you're like, let's do it. Like you do that. I would. It
takes work though. Yeah. To really choose the stuff that's important. And I think doing the ACT process has helped me a lot with that, of coming back to what's important, what brings you joy, and put more of that in your life purposefully every day. Show up and do it.
You find something, you're like, oh, let's try it. I'm going to do the ACT. I'm going to do the Reiki. I'm going to do the yoga with it, and like, let's try it. Let's figure it out. Let's ask questions. Let's get curious. It could suck and I could hate it, but I don't know unless I try it, right? You have to move forward. And you had that calling, it's the universe showing up. It's not you. I'm going to find something new to learn today. No, it shows up. And you're like, oh, that looks curious, right? I don't know. That's me.
Well, and even if it, for some people that they might be thinking, well, it doesn't show up for me. It's the same old stuff. There's nothing that's
you got
here.
Your blinders on?
So that's
sorry.
Many people are just they're not aware. It just hasn't shown up for them quite yet. And so this came up at the Defiantly Joyful Retreat weekend and actually one of my clients was in the audience and she was the one that brought it up, and I was like, oh yay, let's look at her go. She mentioned something that I mentioned to her in one of our first sessions was to create a joy list. And the joy list is a list of things, big and small, that bring you joy or something that you have been interested in doing. So maybe as a kid, you were really interested in tap dancing, but your mom and dad didn't sign you up for a tap dance class. And now you're like, I really would love to try it. So you sign up for a class as an adult, and it may not bring you joy. You may go and say, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. And it doesn't matter, because if you have a list, my challenge for anyone, or invitation, let's change the language on that. My invitation for anyone listening is create a joy list for yourself of 10 items. They don't have to be huge things. They can be simple, like once a week, I'm going to take a different route to work and see what I discover. Another could be once a month, I'm going to a restaurant that has been really on my eye, and it doesn't matter if somebody can come with me or not. I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy it myself. Or it could be big, like I've wanted to go to Fiji. I have the money to do it right now. I'm just booking it. I'm just doing it. I'm going. So you make a list of 10 things and you commit to those 10 things. I like to give people a time limit because I feel like if we leave it open-ended, we don't follow through. So I would say 10 things, accomplish it in 30 days. And it doesn't mean you take a trip in 30 days if that's on your list. It means you book it. And in that time, I would also encourage people to journal. about how they feel within the experiences. And of the 10 things, there might be 2 that really spark joy and enthusiasm and excitement in your life. And that's the thread you follow. Because when you're doing those things, it may be the tap dance class isn't really the thing, but the person you meet in that class is the thing. Mm-hmm. And that person introduces you to something over here, and that thing becomes a huge part of your life. So you just don't know. But when you're following your joy, when you're opening yourself up to the possibility and potential that exists, you will be amazed and floored by what is opened in your life.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I have a list. It's open-ended, so it tends to linger on, but there's so much things that I want to try and want to do and still have careers of being a DJ or stand-up comedy or so many things that I want to explore and grow and learn. Yes. And it's so exciting. And to not have that is such a void. Amalia, tell people, where can they find your book? How can they get in touch with you? Where can they look you up on social media and all that?
Okay, so I'm the same name everywhere. Karmic, KARMIC, kindness, KINDNESS.com is my website. KarmicKindness on all social. I have a very rich YouTube channel, Karmic Kindness YouTube channel, where there's a lot of information there. On my website, there is information about the book, We to Me. The actual release date as of this moment is January 17th, but I'm waiting on a few little things. There'll be more about that at pre-sale probably in December. So it might be a great gift for someone, even though you'll have to give them a little card that says, and there's, my courses online. Everything is on my website. It's fairly easy to navigate. You can always send me a message on social. There's ways to contact me on my website as well. So I'm happy to support and be there for folks. And, social media, I share quite a lot as well. So that's another place that they can learn a little bit, and it's available and it's free. And on my blog too, there's some things that I share on social. If you're not on social media, I know a lot of people are not these days, which I completely respect. If I didn't feel like I needed to be on these platforms, I probably wouldn't. I'm posting a lot of what I post on social on my blog as well. So for people who just aren't into that, you can go peruse and browse there too.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Yeah. I feel like we could talk for another 5 hours.
Keep going.
You're amazing. We got to leave something for people to right? Just touch. Thank you so much. You're amazing. And let's stay in touch for sure.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you for having me. It was really such an honor to spend this time with both of you. And Brian, it was delightful to meet you. I can see why you and Catherine are doing this gig together on all the levels and dimensions of the word gig. So maybe that's a little channeling of your DJ and your stand-up comedy.
I told him he just needs to go and do one of those open mic things. Who cares? Just do it.
I'm doing the hockey thing with
Give
the kids
yourself a deadline.
now, right? We're checking things off. We're moving. Come on. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, well, you're awesome. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Bye.
Bye.